Monday, March 2nd. I'm Alicia Menendez with Simone Sanders Townsend and Michael Steele. Breaking this morning, America's European allies are moving forward on a ceasefire plan for Ukraine without the U.S. It is the latest fallout from the diplomacy disaster in the Oval Office. Plus, a new loss in court for Donald Trump. We'll talk to New Mexico Attorney General Raul Torres about his legal fights against the administration. And pushing for transparency inside Elon Musk's Doge. Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury joins the table. It is another busy Sunday morning, so grab your coffee, settle in. Welcome to the weekend.
We are following breaking news from Europe this morning. The UK and France, along with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, are now working on a ceasefire deal to end Russia's war with Ukraine. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer says he hopes to present the plan to the Trump administration. Now, this comes after Starmer embraced Zelensky with a hug yesterday at 10 Downing Street. You can see it right there on your screen. This is a sharp contrast to Friday's Oval Office fiasco.
Let me just say that you're very, very welcome here in Downing Street.
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
As you heard from the cheers on the street outside, you have full backing across the United Kingdom.
You're You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
Remember, Trump vowed to end the war in Ukraine on day one. But now the Trump administration says the path to peace depends on Zelensky's next moves. And NBC News reports, quote, since the blow-up, Trump administration officials have also discussed whether to pause U.S. military aid to Ukraine. That's according to two administration officials, though it is unclear whether or when the president would take such a step. Joining us now to discuss it all is MSNBC contributor and columnist Charlie Sykes and former Republican Communications Director Tara Setmeyer. She is co-founder and CEO of the Seneca Project and writes the Uncompromised with Tara Setmeyer newsletter on Substack.
Good morning to you both. Charlie. So the performative meeting in the Oval Office, which was really, in my estimation, planned. That was an ambushing of our ally. The contrast between what we saw with Starmer and what we saw with Trump speaks for itself. But I think the important thread here is how our allies now stand up. The reality, the truth is, you cannot negotiate a peace settlement from a one-sided perspective. Trump started this process with Zelensky standing in the hallway. When he brings him into the room, finally, he berates him. He is working out his plan with Putin. Starmer is trying to work out a plan for our ally. How do you see the European role reshaping this conversation and ultimately what this peace plan and process will look like?
Well, let's just go back to the last 48 hours, though. You used the word fiasco and disaster, and the more you think about what happened in the Oval Office, I think it is more. I think it is more consequential. It feels like a turning point, breaking point in world history and in the Western Alliance. It's not simply what the Europeans are going to do in this particular circumstance. They now have to realize that the United States is no longer the leader of the free world as long as Donald Trump is the president, that we are no longer a reliable ally. In fact, in many of these cases, the United States might be an adversary, and this is difficult to get your head around because what we are seeing, what we saw on Friday, was perhaps the end of the post-war alliance. So Europe has to deal with a completely remade world, and the question is now, will Europe step up to fill the vacuum of American retreat and appeasement? And we don't know. I mean, I think there's a real possibility that they will. I think over the last 48 hours, you've seen the rest of the free world rallying around President Zelensky in the cause of Ukraine, which leaves the United States, weirdly enough, isolated from its own allies. And, you know, for a lot of us who've been doing this for a long time, to watch the Europeans show more backbone than the United States is a tremendous reversal of fortune.
I want you to to listen, Tara, to what Senator Lisa Murkowski had to say. This is what she tweeted on X. This week started with administration officials refusing to acknowledge that Russia started the war in Ukraine. It ends with a tense, shocking conversation in the Oval Office and whispers from the White House that they may try to end all U.S. support for Ukraine. I know foreign policy is not for the faint of heart, but right now, I am sick to my stomach as the administration appears to be walking away from our allies and embracing Putin, a threat to democracy and U.S. values around the world. Tara, I'm sort of asking you as a messaging and comms person, how you make sure that that is the takeaway from that disastrous Oval Office meeting, and not the frame that you hear Republicans using, a lot of Republicans using, which is our president put a foreign president in his place.
You know, I'm glad at least Senator Murkowski has been on the right side of a lot of these issues, including when it came time to remove Donald Trump back when he was impeached for the second time after January 6th. And she's 100% right about this. And what's so sickening, to use her words, is that people like Marco Rubio, who looked as though he wanted to slink into that couch and be anywhere but there, because they know better. So many of these Republicans who were sanctimonious about the importance of American strength and peace through strength in the world, and the importance of our strategic alliances overseas, the importance of NATO. I remember when Republicans were outraged when Barack Obama castigated Mitt Romney during a presidential debate, saying when Mitt Romney said that Russia was our biggest threat, and he said, "Oh no, the 1980s want their foreign policy back." Where are all those people now? Look at Lindsey Graham. What a hypocrite. So many of them, this hypocrisy and lack of courage, they're cowards, is potentially going to change the course of the history of this country and the Western alliances moving forward, because they are too cowardly to stand up for Western democracy and America's position in the world for Donald Trump. It was outrageous. I'm embarrassed for this country. Every Republican that is backing Trump and Vance's ambush of Zelensky, who is a hero, this man is a wartime president. In Europe, our grandfathers fought World War II. They crossed oceans to make sure that democracy held in this world against fascism and authoritarianism and what Putin and Russia represent. And this is what we do to their legacy. It's shameful. And every Democrat and Republican who knows better should be aligned on their messaging, condemning Donald Trump and what J.D. Vance did.
It's so interesting because Lindsey Graham said he was proud of the Oval Office blow up, but he said something else in those remarks that I want to play. Let's play Lindsey Graham talking about Donald Trump and how he's proud of the president.
When a European leader speaks, no bad guy listens. When Trump speaks, everybody's on edge. I was never more proud of President Trump than I was yesterday. He stood up for America. He refused to be lectured to. And at the end of the day, whether or not Zelensky can change, I don't know. But I'm proud of the president.
Charlie, it's shocking that Senator Graham would say that, particularly about our European allies. It seems to me that the Europeans are not about to take this lying down. They have a summit today of European leaders, including Germany, Denmark, Italy, the Netherlands, France, Norway, Poland, Spain, Finland, Sweden, the Czech Republic. Arrivals are happening as we speak. We just put it up in London. Romania, the Turkish Foreign Minister, the NATO Secretary General, the President of the European Commission, and the European Council will also attend. Even Canada is hopping on a flight to make it to London to have this conversation. And during the summit, it's going to include talks on establishing a European military force to be sent to Ukraine that would underpin a ceasefire. Starmer noted it would involve a coalition of the willing. These are...
This is awful. This is awful, and I still think it's part of the reflection towards what went on that shouldn't have went on during the Reagan and the Bush administration that has put us all in behind the eight ball now in basically the world looking at us like we're a bunch of lunatics. This is awful. And I still say it's got a reflection upon what the so-called churches either have done or have not done, which one is just as important as the other, in actually trying to dismiss, I guess would be the right word, dismantle the founder of the Windmill Ministries missions that they've been a part of now for the past 30 plus years, that even to this day still don't have true support. They claim, they say that they want peace. They claim that they're Christians pertaining to godliness, but look at what America has turned out to be. I have never been so ashamed of what has recently just happened right in front of our very eyes, which, just like the lady said, actually smears a reflection upon to our ancestors towards what that they was willing to sacrifice for. Sweat, blood, and tears, the ultimate sacrifice. And to think that this is now derangedly blowed up in Donald J. Trump's face, or backfired the way that it has everything to do with what went on right here in the good old USA, beginning right here in Northwest Tennessee. Now, you can sit and you can argue that fact, you can ignore that fact, you can deny that fact, but these are the facts of what we have recently just seen in the past 48 hours. And this don't have nothing, absolutely nothing to do with what my son has done pertaining to him marrying a Ukrainian woman that her family still lives in Ukraine to this day. This don't have nothing to do with that. This has got to do with the primary principles of America and the way that the world is looking at us towards saying, yeah, they're saying that about the Antichrist. Yeah, they're saying that about the opening of the first seal, but we don't see no supporters in actually backing that. You know why? Because they have, us, our politicians before us, even before Trump ever even stepped onto the first stage, have made fools out of themselves because of the anti-Semitism, anti-Judaism that has went on here in America. People ain't stupid. People aren't stupid. They can see. They can understand what's went on. Basically taking an individual and trying to ruin his life. It's one thing to put somebody out on a limb, and it's another thing to purposely sit back and watch that person basically get gnawed on, chewed on, and basically be thrown to the wolves. That's what's happened. That's exactly what's happened. And to think that I come back here to help a group of people for the past 10 years, and this is the type of welcoming that I had, that I'm still getting. And I question some of the elderly people around here about what went on with Davy Crockett. And they look at me and say, well, he was a fool for doing what he done, wasn't he? Well, you know what? Maybe he was a fool. Because if can't nobody else see how devoted and how honorable that Davy Crockett should be looked upon today, then obviously we got a problem right here in America that has abandoned their obligations and responsibilities towards what we're supposed to be doing today in honor of what that they have done years and years ago. You wonder how come things has blowed up the way that they have here in America? Starting at the White House, going down to the church house, from the church house to the schoolhouse, towards our schools not teaching our children properly, taking the commandments out of God, taking the commandments out of school, and taking the Pledge of Allegiance out of school. This is disgraceful. This is absolutely heartbreaking in seeing what has developed just within the past 48 hours. You know, I could get in the floor and I could throw a fit. I could scream, I could yell, I could raise my voice, I could start using all kind of obscenity words that are inappropriate to use on live media. But would it change anything? And we wonder how come basically the heavens is opened up towards shaking their fist at us and seeing all these developments of all this hard stuff that's continued to keep happening to the American land again and again and again and again and again and again, being ravaged again and again and again and again and again. Well, you got it. It started way back when. Once upon a time, the American people had properly, morally, spiritually, went this way, but instead they went in the opposite direction. Wow. This isn't a fairy tale, folks. This is the history of America that is being proclaimed right in front of your very eyes. And these are the facts that I'll be able to sit down one day and tell my grandchild about and tell her, you know what, honey? I tried so desperately in putting this message out that God had given to me to give to others, and it was rejected. It was not appreciated, and they attacked me because of it, and they actually tried everything in the world in dissolving or destroying my life. I'm going to be able to tell those children that Dennis James Jackson, that was born March 22nd, 1961, in the development of having to fight for his life at the age of 2 weeks old, had a kidney removed that was absolutely unprecedented, unheard of during that time of a doctor operating on an infant that small and that young. Been kicking and stomping and basically fighting for my life and fighting for my sanity and fighting for my dignity for 63 plus years, soon to be 64, and still don't get no positive results. Do you think that these people on the other side of the world can't see this? Do you think that the people over in Arizona or California or Nevada or Oregon can't see this?
Leaders arriving to fill the void that Donald Trump is creating by siding with Vladimir Putin, Charlie.
What you are describing is the world order being remade in real.
Now, I heard Donald Trump say, in response towards any defense to Donald Trump, which, once more, it's got to the point you can't believe nobody or nothing, including the politicians that's in power today, that obviously they have just got through demonstrating. But I heard him say something to the degree that if I degraded Putin in telling him who he really was, do you really think that he's going to be willing to negotiate with me? That's one of the primary factors that's wrong with America to this day, is that they have wanted to patronize the truth. They have wanted to patronize different people or different things based upon their own experiences or their own legendas. How come we can't call black black, and how come we can't call white white? How come we can't call a spade versus calling a godly man an ungodly man? Just like they done in the courts up here in Dresden, Tennessee, whenever Tommy Moore looked at my brother and I and said, "Well, Juby, They're all thinking you're of the black horse, not of the white one. I'm going to tell you why. It's because of a group of people that's been deceived and all the lies that has been preached to them for all these years, and they're still not willing to accept the truth that they have been bamboozled over here in the Western world. There was a reason why God put what he put in the Bible pertaining to Revelations that corresponds with Daniel. There's a reason why that God says many different times to the churches, be thy faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. He that shall overcometh will not be hurt of the second death. There's a reason why that God left his imprint or a manual for us to go by, is because of warnings and advisories. I can understand now, by looking at what has developed in my life for the past 30 plus years, especially whenever in 2009 what occurred in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, whenever they was bold enough to try to implement me as me being some sort of a homegrown terrorist based upon what had originally occurred in Martin, Tennessee in 2005 towards falsifying files, and it wasn't but about 2 years after that, here come Kentucky towards trying to do the same thing over electrical disturbances, and then about 2 years later, here come Oklahoma in pursuit. I can understand now why that the things has occurred in my life, beginning at the White House in 1988. After a telephone call was given to the White House in 1983 regarding the Antichrist. And to think that not only myself, but others have been willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice for the truth, nothing but the truth, so help us God. It was imperative. It was absolutely imperative for me to go out west and for me to discover the things that I discovered regarding the Mount Carmel, Waco incident that was tied into directly to the Oklahoma City, Oklahoma incident. It was imperative for me to go out there and discover the truth about all that. But to this day, I'm still getting ridiculed over it. To this day, I'm still being judged or condemned over it, rather than our country coming clean and explaining these things to the rest of the world, because they can see this too. They can see what went on pertaining to the World Court, pertaining to Interpol. They can see these things. And I've never seen so much, just like the woman said a while ago, hypocrites. Two-faced hypocrites. And you wonder how come people such as myself don't know what to think, or are so disgusted about our government being $36+ trillion in debt pertaining to our Congress and our senators and our Supreme Courts. I have never thought, out of the history books that I've been a part of looking at, or the classes that I've listened to, or the movies that I've listened to and watched, our history in America, I have never ever thought that we would have stooped so low. Now, Donald Trump can say whatever he wants to say. Well, if I was to call Mr. Putin what Mr. Putin really is, do you really think that he's going to be willing to negotiate with me? Well, you know what? I could care less whether or not he was or wasn't. The fact of the matter is, if you're going to be a straight shooter in the eyes of righteousness, you're going to call black black and white white. You're not going to try to conform that or try to mix that up. Not in the righteousness of God, and think that you're going to be able to do it and get away with it. And that's exactly what they've attempted to do right here in the United States, and I feel so sorry for the children and the children's children, those that's, you know, my granddaughter's age, that's going to have to be reared up into such hypocrisy. Nothing but hypocrisy over here in America. To see how our streets have become so violent, all the drugs and all the other problems that goes along with it, towards not even being able to secure our own lives over here. But yet no, they keep feeding these politicians. They keep putting them in power, and they keep giving them these high-dollar checks, even knowing that they're taking advantage of them the whole time. I've never seen a group of people that was so two-faced. Out of all the history that I've read and know anything about, I wouldn't have never thought that this would have occurred pertaining to this travesty, but it has. But it has. There's no denying. I think what happened 48 hours ago, or a little less than 48 hours ago, was basically the cherry on top. It's like, look here, world. This is the cherry on top towards who we really are, or what we're supposed to be, or what we are. It's a disgrace. It's dehumanizing. It's absolutely dehumanizing in what has occurred here. And I'm so glad that God has spared my life long enough for me to take a part in this life, to be able to tell the Windmill Ministries story to the rest of the world, other than a few hard-headed, fence-straddling, lukewarm, so-called Christians here in America. I'm so glad that I've had the opportunity through social media of telling my story that I can validate on paper.
Real time, right now. This is not just a simple adjustment. This, again, is the world recognizing that, okay, Donald Trump needs to be taken seriously and literally, and we cannot trust him. He is not going to be a reliable ally or negotiator. You know, I've given a lot of thought over the years to people like Lindsey Graham. And by the way, John McCain must be so horrified to see what his friend is doing right now. From wherever he is watching this. But, you know, you think about people like Lindsey Graham, who I'm sure have been telling themselves over the years that, you know, I need to suck up to Donald Trump because I need to be in the room. I need to be the adult that stops bad things from happening. And yet, over the last week, what has happened? We have abandoned our allies. We voted with Russia in the United Nations. We humiliated, not just simply berated President Zelensky, but humiliated him in a way that world leaders do not do. What happened in the Oval Office has never happened in American history. No American president has behaved that way in public. Lindsey Graham knows this, and yet has decided that he's going to continue his sycophancy, his bending of the knee. And again, at one time you could say, okay, he's being transactional. He's going to prevent Donald Trump from doing something horrible. But as you watch Marco Rubio and you watch Lindsey Graham, you realize there is no red line. They're not the adults in the room. Mm-hmm. They're the invertebrates in the room who are going to stay silent and then enable the worst things that they would have recognized 5 minutes ago. And I think this is really what's on display. Now, Lisa Murkowski, I really liked her comment and the fact that she's talking about how, you know, her stomach is turning. It felt real. Maybe she should have thought of that before she voted to confirm Tulsi Gabbard as the director of national intelligence.
That's true. She was wrong on that. She was wrong on that issue.
Raising a glass on that one, Charlie.
Thank you, Charlie.
Charlie and Tara, please both stick around with us. We have more to chat about, like Donald Trump's joint address to Congress on Tuesday. And next hour, folks, Peter Baker, the New York Times chief White House correspondent, tells us about Trump's major...
You wonder how come Pence done what Mr. Pence done? Pence seen through all this stuff. Just like the day of January the 6th. He refused to get into that automobile, that battalion of Homeland Security, the Secret Service here in America. He refused to get in there because he knowed something isn't right. And really and truly, it was actually probably a blessing that the vice president didn't regroup or partner up with the very person that he was partnered up with to begin with, because look now what Mr. Pence's image would sure enough be if he would have stayed in the saddle, hooked up with a wise guy.
A legislative body that his...
Let's back up a little bit. I think I missed part of this.
Install and train.
I still say that I shouldn't be having to do this, make these videos again and again and again, and basically micromanaging what's going on. And of course I said that I was going to do that, and I'm doing just exactly what I said that I would do towards micromanaging different things that's going on, that's going to affect all of our lives. But I shouldn't have to be sitting down making all these videos explaining all this stuff to my viewers and to the world. I shouldn't had to have ever been put in this predicament. If the baby boomers and the elders would have done the proper right thing in the late 80s. But I am. So I'm just taking it on the cuff, and I'm going with the flow and letting whatever falls upon to the American people's heads. They have brought it upon to themselves, just like my grandmother used to always tell us boys. If the shoe fits, wear it.
On Tuesday, Donald Trump will address a joint session of Congress. He's expected to tout his long list of executive orders, his major accomplishments so far, including several he signed just last night. One of them makes English, if y'all didn't know this, the official language of the United States. Our country has a 250-year-old tradition of not having a national language because we all kind of speak it. Charlie Sykes and Tara Setmeyer are back with us. Yes.
Tara, there just is irony the word I am looking for. There is just something so Trumpian about standing before a legislative body that his party controls and touting accomplishments that he has accomplished without them, because he has such little regard for that legislative body, for the people who elected the members of that legislative body, that he is going to go and brag about the fact that he is already operating as a king.
I think the word is authoritarian. He has completely neutered the United States Congress, particularly not Democrats, Republicans in particular. I don't know. I think they're all trying to find themselves and standing up for things and just allowing their power as Congress to be completely taken from them by Donald Trump. Once again, I remember there were times where Republicans were quite upset about a few executive orders that Barack Obama issued, and they thought, oh, this is an imperialist president, and how dare they? They were pearl clutching with that, particularly Lindsey Graham and others. And so, where's all of that? Where's all of that? Ruling by executive order is not the way our country is supposed to function. And the fact that Donald Trump is doing that repeatedly, and some of them are unconstitutionally, they're questionably constitutional, and they're just like, okay, that's fine. But the other part about this, I think the other word I would use is unconscionable, because Donald Trump will be returning to the scene of the crime that he was behind. This is where this is the first time he'll be back since January 6th happened. And how many of the Capitol police officers who put their lives on the line that day are going to have to be there to protect that building again for this event? How many of the members of Congress who were traumatized that day will have to be there in that chamber and staring at the man who was behind that almost took down our free and fair elections in our government? I think it's appalling. And I think we really need a national reckoning as a country to be reminded of what happened that day, and that the American people chose to put that man back there and give him power again. There is something fundamentally very wrong with us as a country, the ones who chose to put that man back in power. who claim to be pro law and order and pro the Constitution.
That's the reason why I didn't vote. I didn't help to put him in power. And I bet you, even though they claim that the majority did put him in power, according to their facts, if you was to go knocking on people's doors right now and ask them, hey, did you vote? Did you vote for Donald Trump? Oh, no, I didn't vote. You sure? No, I didn't vote for him. That's how backstabbing, hypocritical that the American people have become. The majority of them right now would deny, if you was to confront them one-on-one, it wouldn't matter if it was at the water fountain or in church services. Did you put him in power? Did you help to put him in power? Oh, no, I didn't do that. That's your picture, friends. That's the true blue coming out to the world pertaining to who America has, or what America has become. Beginning at the White House, to the church house, to the schoolhouse, all the way down to the outhouse. And I realize a lot of people claim that they're offended because of my truthfulness. Well, who they should be offended in is themselves. And I don't care if you're 80, 70, 60, 50, or 40. All of you have taken a part in this travesty that has now caught up with the American people worldwide. It was Ronald Reagan that made a statement about a time capsule towards what would the world think about the Americans if you was to bury a time capsule, because he was smart enough to identify that everything that was going on today, people would be reading about us whenever they come into existences 100 years ago. And they would be able to look at us hindsightedly from the backside towards our mistakes. And Ronald Reagan questioned the fact, what would the people think about the American people of digging up that time capsule whenever Reagan was president? What would they think about the American people? And would we and could we still hold our heads up high in being proud of that in which what we have become? I think today, if you was to dig Ronald Reagan up out of the grave, which you know is impossible. I mean, you can dig him up, but as far as bringing life back into him, and explain to him all the pretenses and all the events that has occurred since he made his initial debut in ending of the Cold War pertaining to biblical Bible prophecy, he would probably faint. He would probably pass out or get sick and throw up. And that's just what's happened in the past 30 plus years. So you can only imagine what this country, in the trajectory that we're in and on right now, you can only imagine what people are going to be thinking about us 100 years from now, providing that the world even lasts that long. Because the trajectory that we're on right now, and environmental fronts, and also in the spiritual world, pertaining to the world of reality, I don't know that we'll make it 100 years from now, as far as America still being America, because you cannot consistently dig a hole for yourself by doing the things that we've been doing for the past 30 plus years. It's unsustainable. It goes beyond idioticness to the point of insanity. And the sad thing about it is that it will be our children and our children's children, the lives of the innocent, that will pay the bill on all this. And to think that we're going to become deceased ourselves one day, and we're going to pass this burden down to our children and our children's children, speaks volumes about the generation that's growing up today, or the generation that has grown up in the generations before us, pertaining to the baby boomers and the elderly. It speaks volumes. And if you can't see that and identify that and recognize that, then you yourself is out of touch with reality. Similar towards how that they falsely accused me of in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, after I discovered the truth, that they was hiding the truth from their own people, much less the rest of the world. Hypocrites. Two-face.
I think Democrats should either, if they don't go, then, or if they do go, then they should sit there in silence. There shouldn't be any glad handing when he walks down that aisle. They should turn their backs on him in silence to make it known that they are not okay with this and that they are standing up for our democracy and they are not going to fawn over an American president who disrespects everything about this country and our Constitution.
Why would they not? Why would they not? Why would they not, looking at the past record towards how hypocritical that these people are over here in saying one thing, white man speaking with forked tongue, saying one thing but doing just the very opposite? Why would they not do that? Sure, they'll do it. Something has happened to our whole concept of our culture over here, and I think it began shortly after the assassination of Kennedy. I think people started backsliding, people started compromising, and the things that we believed at that time that was considered right and just and holy, we started tromping on. We started giving the farm away. We started going backwards. And now, look at what we've become. In the eyes of righteousness, in the eyes of the Almighty, look at what we've become over here. All these drugs, all this rock and roll, all this pollution, all this disrespect to elderly people, disrespect to our law enforcement agencies, all the compromising with the judges towards basically barely punishing people that do heinous crimes, but people such as myself, we're going to try to basically burn you at the stake in this witch hunt that they was on. And trust me, it was a witch hunt. It got to the point that it didn't matter where I was in America and what state that I was in, because of the computer and all the false information that was being put out there. It was literally ruining my life. And I can prove it on paper. Didn't matter if it was Colorado, didn't matter if it was Arizona, didn't matter if it was California, didn't matter if it was Georgia, didn't matter if it was wherever. Which once more is another violation of our Constitution pertaining to double jeopardy. I've never seen America like it is right now. Whenever it comes to people being reformed. This isn't a system of reformment. This is a system of punishment towards the corrupt becoming even more corrupted there, and the innocent becoming even more violated there. People that's made mistakes in their lives, they get punished again and again and again after they pay their dues to society. It affects their credit rating. It affects how people look at them. It affects whether or not you can get a decent job. It affects every aspect about their lives because they made a mistake. And even though they paid their debt to society, now we're going to punish you again and keep punishing you again and again and again, because this is the way we are over here. The most incarcerated country in the world. And you wonder what's happened? Quit wondering. It's obvious that we've been jinxed, cursed, no longer blessed at $36+ trillion in debt. I still say, if there is any hope whatsoever about this country reforming and getting back on its feet, it's going to be through the power of the Holy Spirit regarding a great revival that will have to elevate through the Windmill Ministries missions. And if not, I think it's pretty well over with, even for my granddaughter, soon to be at the age of 2. And if it's over with for her, that means it's over with for everybody else's granddaughters and everybody else's grandsons and everybody else's great-granddaughters and great-grandsons, and go on and on and on. This is what the Reagans and this is what the Bush has done. Whenever 9 tapes went to the White House in 1988 after a telephone was given to the White House in 1983 about the Antichrist. These are facts. Undisputable. This is not no ideology. It's not a theory. It's not a mythology. These are facts. You can't taint it. You can't twist it. You can't manipulate it any other way other than the way that it's rolling out in front of the world right now. And the sad thing about it is, it's not just we over here pertaining to the continent of the United States that's observing this. This is being observed by people all over the world. Beginning in Weakley County, Tennessee. Weakley County and Obion, Tennessee, right here where the core of origin began. Now, I ain't going to lie to you. The people that are familiar with me, that have been against me the whole time, whenever I see them out here in the public somewhere, I can literally feel the hatred, the hatefulness, and the bitterness. I can literally see the daggers coming out of their eyes whenever they look at me and they make eye contact with me, because I know that these was the people that are guilty in this movement, this anti-Christ, anti-Semitism, anti-Juby movement that began 30+ years ago, that these same people still refuses to acknowledge that they was a part of this. Beginning in Dresden, Tennessee, beginning in Weakley County and Obion County, Tennessee, and Northwest Tennessee, that spread abroad in the other areas, Kentucky, Georgia, Oklahoma, Texas. Until America is willing to clean up its act, I personally think that we're doomed. And the only way, there's not a politician that's going to rescue us. There's no politician that you can put in power that's going to be America's savior. And that was one of the primary reasons why I didn't vote. Because I said it wouldn't matter at this point in time if you was to put both parties in power at the same time. You're not going to be able to have a solution to these problems towards waving a magic wand over the American people's heads, and all of a sudden all our problems is just going to up instantaneously and go away. We have created a culture over here with all these drugs and all this other ungodly stuff that we said one thing, oh no, we're against. But yet no, our actions proved otherwise. It's become frightful over here in America, especially me knowing the sacrifices that has been made to make this great nation of what it used to be, it's become frightful. You know, in a way, going all the way back into the 1500s, basically whenever Columbus supposedly discovered America, which we're identifying that ain't even so. But in a way, this country was kidnapped. It was hijacked. It was hijacked, and I've seen so many unbelievable, raunchy, corrupt, sinful occurrences that has happened since then. Regardless whether it was the genocide of the red man, or the mishandling, or the corruption coming from slavery pertaining to how that they done the black man. It's just unbelievable in how asphyxiated that evil has become over here towards corrupting the minds and the hearts of so many people. If we don't go back, just as the Bible talks about, he will throw this great nation and the planet off into great tribulation. We're already in a sick bed. We've been in a sick bed basically since the 80s, pertaining to the beginning phases of AIDS. This was shortly after Loretta Lynn started singing about the birth control pill that come about in the 70s. But if we don't go back, it'll be the ruin to the American people and the rest of the world.
Yeah, but the price of eggs, Charlie, that's what 2024 boiled down to. To Tara's point about what the Democrats could be doing, should be doing, may be doing, you do have Nancy Pelosi making note, let him stew in his own juice. She tore up his speech at one point during one of these sessions. So yeah, let the
But I want to say this for my record. It's not just one-sided. It's not just the Republicans that started all this in a negative way, but the Democrats followed right in pursuit towards bringing that much more corruption. I mean, you can look at what happened during Obama's presidency pertaining to the Supreme Court. That didn't happen on the Republican ticket. That happened on the Democrat ticket. So it's been both. And because of it, I didn't feel like neither party was worthy of my vote. And now you know the reason why I would not participate in a presidential election. Now you know the reason why that I refuse to invest or fluctuate my life with these type of people, beginning in Dresden, Tennessee, leading down to other people like Randy Brundage or Leroy Neal's son, Terry Neal, and all the above. Now you know the reason why that I refuse to rub shoulders and elbows with these people. I feel more content at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255, by sitting here by myself, petting my dog, making my videos, and telling people the truth about what has occurred. Because I know that if I would have went out in any other form after I come back to Northwest Tennessee in 2014, if I'd have went out towards trying to be bold, towards passing out cassette tapes, VHS tapes, CDs, DVDs, putting pamphlets under people's windshield washer on their cars, or going house to house passing out material, I'd be in jail. And the only reason why that I haven't had people come and knock on my door, either in the black or people wearing white suits, kind of like the hazmat suits, towards Mr. Jackson, you're under arrest, is because of what has occurred in my life in the past so many times that they know that this invention that they tried to invent with the psychiatric communities over here ain't going to no longer work with me. And they know that the agreement that was made in Paducah, Kentucky,
Because
with a federal judge would even violate that agreement. They're hypocrites. And that was the only reason why it gave me the stamina to stand back up after my brother died and to start making these recordings.
Constitution, the Article 1, the first article is the power of Congress. So the founders envisioned Congress as being the most important branch of government. You think about Donald Trump's power, it rests on what? 4 Republican senators not willing to call BS on this. His margin in the House is just a handful. Literally a half dozen Republicans could essentially say, no, we are the Congress of the United States. We do not have to bend the knee to this narcissistic bully in the White House. So this is a surrender by Congress. I've been thinking about this all morning, what Democrats should do. The only thing I can say is that recognize how completely abnormal this moment is. And I think that part of what Donald Trump has done is he has shattered all of the norms. He has executed this constitutional revolution, and yet he wants to have the trappings of the constitutional order around him.
He put the cherry on top. That's what he done. All these attempts and wanting to go in every direction other than the right direction.
Standing and turning your back, no. If I was a member of Congress, quite frankly, I don't think I'd show up. It's like, no, you know what? I'm not going. A lot of the Democrats will, but I do think that again, no glad handing. There can't be any of the normal rituals of all of this. And the Nancy Pelosi suggestion, make it a short, clear message. Make it clear to the American people that they are not accepting this, that they are going to fight against this, and that this is an extraordinary moment in American history. This is not just one more episode. And I know that we all say that kind of thing, but I think that at some point, if you say this is an existential crisis, this is a constitutional crisis, act like it. Behave like it.
Yep.
Don't pretend it's same old, same old.
I think that.
Well, see, that was part of the trajectory towards continually keeping it out of sight, out of mind, kicking the can down the road. Yeah.
Response.
And now it's caught up with them towards, hey, we can no longer keep the people bamboozled. We can no longer kick the can down the road. We can no longer pretend that this isn't really happening to us, huh? Yeah.
Trying to say, well, we're going to show unity and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, if you're going to go, then you need to go and do something, to Charlie's point, drastic, to send the message. I would go. I agree with you.
Do not attend. Part of, you know what, we'll have more time to talk about it. I'll be taking wagers on my Instagram account about if the Democrats are going. Charlie, Tara, thank you. Tuesday, folks. Remember, we're not going, but we'll be here to talk about it. Be sure to tune in to MSNBC for our special coverage of Donald Trump's joint address to Congress. Ari Melber and Jen Psaki are going to kick things off at 6 p.m. Eastern with a preview. And then at 8, they will join Rachel Maddow and the team for coverage of the speech. The speech starts at 9. Then at midnight, the three of us, yes, we will bring you reaction from across the country. That's Tuesday right here on MSNBC. Up next, thousands of people are feeling the pain caused by Elon Musk's Doge, and one of them will join us right here at the table. You're watching The Weekend.
I didn't.
Doing all these massive layoffs and deforming our institutions the way that they are, I think they're going to create more damage than they're going to create good. Now, that didn't cost you nothing, but I'm just saying, we're at that breaking point that we never should have been here to begin with.
We're having this robust discussion about whether Democrats should go to the joint address of Congress or not, because it feels like business as usual from Washington, D.C. in many respects. You know,
that's the key.
It does. The Speaker of the House.
It does, yeah.
The Speaker is on Meet the Press right now talking about, now I want a clean CR. Democrats need to negotiate with us. I thought Americans did not negotiate with terrorists, and this is a hostage situation. It's a hostile proverbial situation, and
that's the reason why that our core is to swear off to allegiance of fighting against terrorism, regardless whether it was terrorism in the foreign or terrorism on our own land. We have been hijacked, friends. We have been bamboozled. Now, you can pin the core of origin back down towards the 60s of the assassination of JFK, or you can pin it in the 80s, like I continue to keep pinning it, or you can pin it to the point of where we are right now. But I'm telling you, we are at the point of no return. And if this isn't turned around through the Holy Spirit, in the innocence of a revival, we're doomed. Now, people's going to laugh at that. People's going to laugh at that, and they're going to say, "Oh, we've heard the little boy cry wolf before." Well, yeah, we've heard the little boy cry wolf before, but this time, the little boy ain't crying. This time, the little boy is being very stern in what he's saying. And you can either wisen up and listen, or you can continue to walk down this endless road to the mouth of the volcano. Because certain people intended for us to be exactly where we are right now. That was done consciously and intentionally. Good luck to all of us. Good luck to each and every one of us. And may God have mercy on all of us. Good luck to our United States military. Good luck regarding our endeavors towards which way America goes from this moment on. And shalom.